All right, so this video is going to be about something that I see people getting confused a lot, and I think it sometimes can make it hard for people to understand what I'm talking about when I talk about heroism. So I want to try to overcome one of the objections that I sometimes get from people. Um, and what it is regarding the concept of good. One of the things that I hear people say a lot is no matter how good of a person you are, you're the villain in someone's story, right? So no matter how good of a person you are, you're the villain in someone's story. And this is one of those memes that you can see floating around on Facebook sometimes. I've seen it a few times in the last couple of weeks on my friends' feeds, so I thought I would comment on this since I talk about heroism all the time. But it's one of those memes that's both true and false at the same time. So it is true that in someone's story, you're the villain. And that's an example of subjective good. Subjective means not factual. It's not based in uh, objective reality or the reality that exists outside of my opinion, man, right? If you remember the dude from Big Lebowski, that's like your opinion, man. That's what subjective means. It means it's your opinion. And so you could contrast subjective villainy with objective villainy, which is based in actual social reality, that there is actually a right and wrong, and you can feel the difference and notice the difference. It's wrong to mistreat your child. It's right to nurture and teach and feed your child, right? That's an objective good. Because if you don't do those things, if you don't feed them, you don't take care of them, they're not going to flourish as living beings. So that's outside of my opinion. That's just the way it is. So that's an objective good. And when I talk about heroes and villains, or heroic behavior and villainous behavior, or heroic character and villainous character, I'm referring to objective good and objective evil. So, having had the privilege of working with the 30 most dangerous criminals in Maine for 2 years on the mental health unit at the Maine State Supermax Prison as a behavioral health technician, and having worked for 3 years at Men's Work Batterer Intervention Program in Augusta, Maine, with convicted male batterers. Every Thursday night, I had 15 to 24 of them in a room with me for 3 years with a female co-facilitating partner. I was able to, and having grown up in an abusive family where my dad was an objective, he was behaving in ways that would get him the label villain. God bless his sweet soul. He's not alive anymore. But I loved my dad. He was a great guy, and I would honor him if he was here right now. And I would also tell him, Dad, in the story of your life and mine, you were playing a villainous character. And that's because he was stuck. And he did something that objectively you can see if you analyze villains in the movies. If you look at the Terminator or Lex Luthor from the old Superman, the Joker from Batman movies, the Riddler from the Batman movies, Voldemort from Harry Potter, the god Ares, the god of war from Wonder Woman, Agent Smith from the movie The Matrix, Gamork from Neverending Story. All of these bad guy characters had one or two or three key things in common. And I call them behavior clusters. And this is why I'm able to see and talk about character, because you can tell what someone's character is by looking at the cluster of behavioral patterns that they demonstrate habitually, repetitively, when you look at their day-to-day life situation, you can notice a theme. Every time I hang out with Aunt Susie, I always go away feeling really bad about myself. Why is that? Or every time I hang out with cousin Louie, I never get to say anything. I'm always made to feel like I'm bad or crazy. Why is that? Well, it might be because they're doing certain behaviors that are intended to harm you socially or emotionally or psychologically. And because those things are objectively bad for you, and they're being done on purpose, I describe that as villainous behavior because that's what it is, right? I've worked with triple murderers and rapists and sex offenders. I've worked with domestic violence perpetrators of all bad guys of all kinds. And what I can tell you is that there are actually bad guys in the world. And this is why it's important for us to know when you see that walking towards you. Because you have kids to protect, you have yourself to protect, you have clients maybe that you're taking care of, vulnerable populations you work for, like in a nursing home, or I work in the drug and alcohol field, or it could be a group home. And not everybody has pure intentions. So it's not cool to judge people in a prejudging way, but it is cool to do it the Martin Luther King Jr. way, right? He said, I want my daughters to not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Because being able to look at someone's character means that you're using your mind and your brain and paying attention. And that's a good thing. That's part of adulting 101. So don't let anybody tell you that it's a bad thing for you to be an adult and to pay attention and evaluate what kind of stuff is happening around you, right? Do I really want to have that in my life? Do I want to deal with somebody who's going to mistreat me all the time or who's going to lie all the time? Do I really want to have to put up with that? I don't. So I choose not to when I see it as a pattern habitually happening in a certain situation. So I think that's kind of where I was going with that was, subjective good and objective good, and understanding that just because someone says you're the bad guy doesn't mean you're the bad guy, but your actions reveal whether you really are the bad guy or not. So don't look at what people say, because that's just propaganda, right? But look at how people act and interpret patterns, because you're able to do that as a human being. That's really cool. You can interpret patterns. You can interpret the meaning of an event symbolically. All right, have a great night, and I'll talk to you next time.